All right, guys. So today I want to talk to you about your first blog post. Go into a little bit more detail about what I expect. Coming at you with a special guest today. This is Buddy, one of my cats. For some reason, he won't get out of my lap today. So what we're going to do is I actually have a video recorded from last semester about blog post number 1. So I'm going to, one's out. There we go. So I'm going to show you that video. It's not of great quality. Like the videos that I'm creating now is done on an older computer, but it's basically saying the same thing. So I don't see a point in reinventing the wheel here, redoing the exact same work that I've already done. So I'm going to show you a part of that video that's explaining blog post 1, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail at the end. So
I kind of want to set up a scenario for you to imagine and to think about on your own. I'm going to leave the screen here and I'm just going to talk for a little bit. So this basically happens to every one of us almost every day, right? First thing that we do in the morning, we hear our alarm go off, probably on our phone, and we reach for our phone and we turn it off. Sometimes we go back to sleep, sometimes we stay awake, but usually the first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is we open up our phone and we go straight to seeing what sort of text messages we missed overnight, maybe what new emails have arrived overnight or in the morning, depending on what time we wake up. We might jump straight onto social media and start seeing what we've missed overnight on the other side of the world, right? On Instagram, on Snapchat, on Facebook, on VK, whatever it might be, right? So this is probably our morning routine. Wake up, grab the phone, get online, start looking through different social medias. Once we've kind of woken up a little bit, we decide to get out of bed. We make ourselves some breakfast. We look through the cabinet. We see what we got, what kind of tea we got, what kind of, kasha we got, what kind of snacks we got, whatever it is for breakfast. Eat a little bit of breakfast, look in our closet, grab some clothes, throw some clothes on, and head out to class. Right? On our way to class, we're texting our friends. We're walking past through the student tube, we're walking past all of these posters and advertisements and banners and whatever they are, all these different posters that are around us. We're texting our friends, different music that we found, expressing our emotions through GIFs that we think will fit better, emojis that will fit better than text. We might be sending them memes already this early in the morning. Maybe you found a new music video that you wanted to send in the middle of the night, but you couldn't send it to your friends, so you wait till the morning, and all of this is happening on our way to class, walking just through the student tube. We eventually get to class, or we're walking around campus. We're seeing more videos on the walls from the screens in Block C2. We're seeing more posters hanging everywhere celebrating the 10th anniversary of Nazarbayev University, whatever it might be, right? Basically, before you even get to class every day, you have encountered, maybe 100 different multimodal texts, even before you get to class, right? Before you even start looking at the lectures or going into your workshops or things like that and encountering even more multimodal texts that your instructors and your professors give you. These are just things that we naturally take for granted in our everyday life, right? Any text, any sort of piece of media that we encounter in the world is trying to communicate to us, and it's trying to become a successfully rhetorical communication, right? We think about rhetoric from 150 being ethos, pathos, and logos, right? Ethos means it has credibility, pathos means it has emotion, and logos means that it has some sort of logic, stats, facts, and data to support it. It has evidence behind it to try to prove to us that it's something that we want, right, in order to persuade us. Those are obviously the very, very basic definitions of ethos, pathos, and logos, but we encounter them every day, right? Even looking in our cupboard for, the tea bags that we bought, right? When we encountered these tea bags, we made rhetorical decisions based off of ethos, pathos, and logos in order to buy that certain box of tea bags, right? Maybe it's the same tea bags that Babushka has been using her whole life. And so it has the credibility of your family behind it and always using the family, or always being used in the family. So that's why you purchased it, strictly based off of ethos, right? Maybe the box was very colorful and passionate and appealing, or it's funny or silly. And so you bought it based off of the way the box looks because it's making you feel some sort of emotion, right? Or maybe it had this amazing description on the box that said, it was completely organic, farmed in the high fields of India by, local farmers and local oxes and whatever, cattle, things like that, right? So it had this amazing sort of description on the box. And so you use logos there to make that decision to buy those tea bags, right? So in the same sense, we encounter all these other multimodal texts that are using rhetoric, traditional rhetoric, ethos, pathos, and logos, as well as multimodal rhetoric. And so that's the big thing that we're trying to get into now, is multimodal rhetoric. This is where chapter 2 of Writer Designer comes in, and this is where you should probably be paying the most attention for blog post number 1, this bad boy right here. A lot of this blog post is based off of Writer Designer chapter 2. And you really need to understand what multimodal rhetoric means. Multimodal rhetoric is basically audience, purpose, and context, right? The first thing we have here is how can we identify multimodal rhetoric in your text? So if you have a text, whatever it might be, we need to start analyzing it for audience, purpose, and context. Okay? So going into a little bit about what chapter 2 is, right? The rhetorical situation, analyzing sort of where your text takes place and looking at these 5 basic questions of sort of who, what, when, where, why, how, right? I guess 6 questions, whatever it might be. So that's looking at audience, purpose, and context. If we go down a little bit further, you'll get into more deeper sort of analysis of it. Here it explains to you the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why, right? The audience is the who. So who does the author want to reach with this specific text? The purpose is why and what, right? Why does the audience want to reach, or why does the author want to reach that specific audience? And what does the author want to convey to that audience or to communicate to that audience? The context, meaning the when and the where. This one might be a little bit more confusing, right? Context being when and where, in the sense of when was this multimodal text published, or when was it set up, when was it first seen, and sort of what was going on around that time period, right? So the when and the where. So where is it located? Where did you see it? Where was it found? Where was it first published? And what was going on when that happened, right? When that publication occurred, or when it was first seen, or when it was first put out. I'll go into these a little bit more. We're going to look at some examples, and I'll show you how that kind of works out. So that's the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. And then the how is something that you want to focus on in design choices. So how did the author sort of communicate his message? What design choices did he decide to use in order to communicate his message? So this section right here is something you kind of want to pay attention to when creating the rhetorical analysis for blog post number 1, right? What you're doing for blog post number 1 is creating a rhetorical analysis focusing on multimodal and traditional rhetoric using the ideas and terminology presented in our discussions, right? This is mainly what you're doing. You're finding a multimodal text on your own, whether that be a music video, a short video you see on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, an informational commercial, a image that you saw that you really liked, a poster that you saw that you really liked, a GIF that you really want to break down, a meme that you want to break down, a website that you really want to sort of analyze, whatever it may be, as long as it is multimodal, meaning that it has multiple modes within the text. Don't just analyze somebody's 500-word essay, right? That is just a linguistic, Yeah, linguistic mode, textual mode sort of thing. So find a multimodal text, create a rhetorical analysis focusing on multimodal and traditional rhetoric. Multimodal rhetoric being audience, context, purpose, traditional rhetoric being ethos, pathos, logos. So what I have done for you is I've given you some guiding questions for things to think about that should be included in your rhetorical analysis. So how can we identify multimodal rhetoric in your text? Where do we see, how do we understand audience, purpose, and context from your digital text that you found, your multimodal text? What are the modes and the basic design elements in your text? So this is you kind of just identifying that the author has used the linguistic mode with the oral mode, with the visual mode in order to communicate his message, right? Some of the most basic design elements he's using are the ones that you want to take from chapter 2 of Writer Designer. It gives you a nice little list of emphasis, contrast, color, organization, alignment, and proximity. These are the most basic design choices that we're going to be working with at this point in the semester. We're going to get much more detailed a little bit later on, but these are the things you want to focus on. Emphasis, contrast, color, organization, alignment, and proximity. They're all fairly simple to understand, so I'm not going to go into them. We'll find them in chapter 2. They're near the end of the chapter.
I'm asking you to create a visual analysis of your multimodal text using iconography, form, and semiotics. So I will be expecting to see an analysis of all three of these different theories, iconography, form, and semiotics. I will also expect you guys to be using the sources from on iconography, form, and semiotics. Iconography, form, and semiotics are not easy theories to understand, and so it may help for you to introduce these theories and explain these theories in your blog post as well. Remember, your blog posts are written for a wider general audience, and so iconography, form, and semiotics are not common sense topics, right? So a good blog post will provide some sort of explanation of what all three of these theories are, right? Make sure that you are analyzing using all three of these theories, right? I need to see all three of them in there. If I'm asking for all three of them in the blog prompt, that means I'm going to be looking for all three of them in your blog post. Iconography and semiotics are going to be the more important visual analysis theories, right? Form, like I said before, does play a role in analyzing things visually. And some multimodal text might use form more than other things, usually focus more on iconography and semiotics. So those are definitely going to be the two that I'm looking at more in depth, but I do expect to see something about form in there as well. And like I said, you may pick a multimodal text that uses form a lot more than iconography or semiotics. So if that's the case, I'll expect to see a much deeper analysis of form rather than semiotics and iconography. But I do need to see all three of them in there. I've put up quite a few other videos for you as well about iconography, form, and semiotics. They're all on our Moodle. So you can use some of those as additional sources if you need to. Like I said, you can always use these discussion videos that I've given you as a source, but I do need to see where you're getting your information from. So that's a brief explanation of what I'm expecting from blog post number 1. The one thing I do want to sort of add on to that explanation is that when it comes to context, right, when you're talking about multimodal rhetoric, when it comes to context, I mentioned that it's about where it's located and when it was published or when it was put up, these sort of things. It's not simply just stating this video was posted on YouTube in February of 2018. That's not giving any sort of context. Those are just facts, right? So what you have to think about is that video, if it was posted in 2016, right? Is that video relating to the hate that Donald Trump would portray in the future, right? Because he was elected in 2016, and that's why that video came out, right? It's the sort of background behind the multimodal text. So what is the background behind it? Why was it sort of created at that time period for that location where it was released or where it was put up or these sort of things? So context simply isn't just YouTube 2020. That's just like a citation, right? That doesn't give me any sort of extra information. That's not context. So context is a little bit more complicated than just location and time, basically. So what you want to do is you're going to have to create your website, like I already talked about. Once you finish your first blog post, you're going to submit a link to your website under this assignment here, right? Under blog post number 1, you'll create your assignment. Yours is going to look different than mine. Obviously, mine is to grade it. Yours is to submit it. But you'll submit it as an assignment. And all I need, like it says here, is to submit a link to blog post number 1. So make sure it's a working link, not an editing link. Make sure that your website is public, not private. Double check the link that you're submitting to me once or twice before you actually submit it to me so I can go and find your first blog entry. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the rubric, what you're going to be graded on in these blog posts. So that lives up here on top of our Moodle for the rest of the semester. You can always have access to it. Let's pull that up and talk about it a little bit. There we go. That should probably be all right for you to look at. So you're only graded on 3 things in all of these blog posts. The first one is analysis. Second one is use of sources. Third one is design. Right? Analysis and use of sources are both worth 20 points each out of 50, right? These are worth 50 points each. Design is worth 10. Analysis and use of sources means that's obviously the most important part, right? Analysis, in order to get an A basically means you exceed the minimum requirements and all of these things. If you're meeting the minimum requirements, if you're just meeting what the guidelines ask, that's that successful B range right here. If you get an A range, that's an excellent grade, which means you're exceeding expectations, you're exceeding the requirements, right? So you have to have a very strong and thorough and original and unique analysis in order to get that A. So here it says provide an accurate, sophisticated original commentary on the multimodal text, provide a compelling analysis of the multimodal text that shows significance and relevance to the blog post prompt. So you're following the prompt, and it shows some sort of significance, and you're being compelling, you're being interesting, you're not just stating facts in a list. You clearly address all the essential details and the guiding questions from the prompt. So you have to answer everything that I asked in the prompt. And you overtly prove that you understand the text and the theories presented in the prompt. So what these blog posts are really doing is they're proving to me that you have completed the readings, that you understand the readings, and you know how to interpret and apply the readings and the theories to your own multimodal text, right? That's what you're proving to me with these blog posts. If it's evident that you haven't done the readings, that you don't understand the readings, and that you're just trying to sneak by just putting some of the vocabulary terms, the terminology from our readings, that's not going to work out for analysis, and you're not going to be successful in these assignments, right? So you really need to prove to me that you understand what it is that we're talking about for these specific blog posts, for the readings and the class lecture things that we're doing. Use of sources means you have to integrate the material, the sources, the articles, the chapters, whatever it is, you have to integrate that material into your discussion and into your analysis. One way to make your analysis stronger is to always use the material from our readings, right? You're using these so that we can understand, so that I can understand your argument completely and clearly, right? Whatever analysis you're making, support it with the chapters in this sense, right? Support it with quotes from the chapters, support it with information from the chapters, support it with terminology from the chapters, but make sure that you're proving to me that you understand the theories that are being discussed in our readings, right? You're consistently incorporating material from the sources and discussions that effectively support the paraphrase or the analysis that you're providing. So there's constant evidence, there's constant support throughout your blog post. It's not just in the beginning and the end, right? And in order to get the A, like I said, to exceed requirements, you need to use more than just the required sources in the prompt. So for this first one, I'm giving you 5 chapters that need to be included in here. In order to get that full 20 points, that full A, you need to find another source that you could use to help you support your analysis, right? Otherwise, the B says use all the sources from the prompt, which is fine. And design is the last one. So design is going to matter for these blog posts, and design is going to matter for everything that we do in this class. We haven't learned a lot about design at this point, so I'm not going to grade it too strictly, but chapter 2 of Writer Designer does cover the basic some basic elements of design. And so I'm going to be looking for those sort of things, like I mentioned in the explanation of the blog entry. Your blog post should look like a blog post, right? I'm sure you've read a blog at some point in your life. If not, there are millions of them all over the internet. You can Google one and find it. A blog should have text. It should have images. It might have a video. It might use GIFs. It will probably have some bolding, some italicized, some font changes. It will look friendly to an online audience. It should make your audience want to engage in what it is that you are trying to say, right? You're trying to keep your audience engaged. You're trying to be multimodal to further implement and make your communication more effective. So you use multimodality to do this, right? If you're analyzing a video and there are specific places in the video that you find a mode or you find where the audience is being portrayed, show your audience that. Don't just tell us that. Don't just write, right? We're trying to get out of this mentality that text is everything, right? This is what we've been taught in school. This is what we've been taught through our university career. It's all about text. We can just type everything, the written language, it's all we need, right? We're moving away from that. Don't be afraid to be multimodal. Add images, add videos, add GIFs. Make it easier for your audience to understand your communication. That is the main thing that we're trying to figure out, that we're trying to accomplish in multimodal composition, writing for digital media, right? So design is not going to be too important. As you've seen, it's only 10 points out of 50, and I'm not going to grade it too harshly now. So here it just shows an advanced understanding of design. Conventions of a blog post are overwhelmingly present, right? This is that idea of images. It looks like a blog post. It feels like a blog post. It interacts with an audience like a blog post. Layout is clean, clear, easy to understand. Minimal, no grammatical errors present. Here is also where you need to start thinking about what type of language you want to use in your blog entries, right? This is all about chapter 4 from language and learning. So what sort of social conventions do you want to use in your blog post? Do you want to bond with your audience? Do you want to be distant from your audience? What sort of talk should you be using, right? And that's how you make it either friendlier or more formal. These are the conventions of a blog post. So that's basically all I wanted to share with you for blog post. Your first one is due this Sunday at 11:30 p.m., which means you need to create your Wix site first. Once your Wix site has been created, then you can start working on your first blog post. So watch those videos, complete all your readings, start looking for a multimodal text that you want to analyze for blog post number 1. Like I said, it can be anything you find on Instagram, it can be anything you find on YouTube, it can be anything you find in the real world. Take a picture of it, analyze it, whatever posters you see, as long as it is multimodal and not monomodal. So until then, we'll see you guys around.